Namaste. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to this special session on the occasion of the mother's birthday. The title of today's talk is Human Aspiration and Divine Grace. Our guest speaker is Mr. Narendra Murty, who is a former divisional manager in the life insurance industry with over 30 years of passionate study in various religions and philosophies, both Eastern and Western. He has authored several books, including Eating His Money, The Antiques of a Metaphysical Clown, An Odyssey of the Mind, Journeys in the Modern Mindscape, The Religion of Wonder, and An Oak Tree in the Garden, Exploring the World of Zen. Currently, Narendra sir serves as a research associate at Sri Aurobindo Society in Pondicherry and writes monthly for their online journal, Renaissance. Narendra sir, it's wonderful having you back with us on the Yes platform. Thank you so much for joining today. Looking forward to your session, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Arunima. On the holy occasion of the mother's birthday, I pay my obeisance to the mother. Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Paramayi. The subject of today's talk is human aspiration and divine grace. Sri Aurobindo, in his book titled The Mother, he makes the most profound statement relating to our spiritual endeavor, and that is there are two great powers that crown our spiritual endeavor and pursuit, and those two powers are, he writes in the book Mother, in fact, that happens to be the first statement of that book, a fixed and unfailing aspiration that calls from below, and a supreme grace from above that answers. These are the two great powers that Sri Aurobindo talks about human aspiration and divine grace. Now, what do we mean by aspiration? Aspiration is usually, as we understand, is something what we desire for, something that we strive for, that is aspiration. But in the letters on yoga, Sri Aurobindo gives a precise definition of aspiration. He says, aspiration is the call in the being for the divine. This is the definition that he gives. It's a call in the being for the divine. It's not for other things. Not all desires are aspirations. And he continues, and for higher things that belong to the divine consciousness. Call for the divine and for higher things that belong to the divine consciousness. That is how he defines aspiration. So, call in the being for the divine. We can we can understand or try to comprehend what that could be. But this is much easier to understand, a call for the higher things in life. So I'll give you an example, a specific example from the life of Swami Vivekananda. Swamiji was, at that time, he was Narendranath Dutt. He did not become Swami Vivekananda. And he was going through tremendous hardship because of his father's death, and his family was in dire straits. They were having difficulty to manage the daily expenses. And by that time, Narendra had already come under the influence of Sri Ramakrishna. So he went to him and he said, you are in regular communion with the Divine Mother. Why don't you ask her to solve my financial problems? Then Ramakrishna, in a he just smiled and he said, okay, you just go. I won't ask her. Why don't you ask her? You just go to the temple and tell her. Right now, it was at night. Right now, there's no one in the temple. You go and ask her what you want, about your needs. And she would definitely grant it to you. And so Swamiji went inside the temple. He saw the image of the mother goddess. And he was just as if he lost his speech. He could not utter a word. He forgot all about his circumstance, all the hardship that he was going through. He came back, and Ramakrishna asked him, "What, did you ask anything?" And he said, "No, I couldn't ask. I just couldn't ask anything. I just kept silent." Ramakrishna sent him again for the second time. Second time, also the same thing happened. He stood before the mother, and it's written in the records that he saw that she was a living image. It was not a vigraha or an idol. It was a living image of the mother he saw. And again he was speechless. He was robbed of his speech. Again he comes back. Third time Ramakrishna sends him again. But this time, Swamiji, though he succeeded in opening his mouth, he asked for, "Mother, give me viveka, give me vairagya, give me jnana, knowledge, give me devotion." Those are the things he could ask for. He forgot totally about money. So these are the higher things that belong to the divine consciousness. Swamiji, in spite of his difficult circumstances, he could not ask for mere material things. In Savitri, we come across Ashwapati. Now, Ashwapati's aspiration is also an aspiration, but that aspiration is not an individual aspiration. In Swamiji's case, it was an individual aspiration. In Savitri, it becomes an aspiration for the entire mankind and transformation of the earth nature. In the Mahabharata legend, from where this Savitri tale has been taken, it says that Ashwapati did austerities for 18 long years. He was childless. So he did tapasya and yajnas for 18 years for a child. And he was blessed by the goddess, and a daughter was born to him, Kanya Tejaswini, as she is referred to in the Mahabharata. So there in the Mahabharata, it is shown that Ashwapati is basically asking for a child. But here in Savitri, I would be talking about this aspiration and divine grace in the light of Savitri. In Savitri's, in Ashwapati's yoga, or whatever austerities and tapasya the Mahabharata talks about, there in the Mahabharata, it ends in 10 lines. Ashwapati's tapasya and yagnas. In Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Sri Aurobindo takes 11,000 lines out of a total of 24,000 lines of Savitri. Just this part, Ashwapati's yoga. There are 49 cantos in Savitri, and Ashwapati's yoga takes up 22 cantos out of that. Three cantos from book one, the book of beginnings, 15 cantos from book two, the book of the traveler of the worlds, and from book three, book of the Divine Mother, four more cantos. So that makes 22 cantos. Now you can say why the 10 lines of Mahabharata becomes 11,000 lines of Savitri. That's because you could say this is a kind of spiritual biography, spiritual autobiography of Sri Aurobindo himself. Sri Aurobindo did not write a biography in that sense, in the normal sense that we understand the word. But in Savitri, he wrote his spiritual autobiography. This and book seven, the book of yoga, all these taken together, they form the yoga of Sri Aurobindo as well as the mother. So straight away, human aspiration as given out by Sri Aurobindo in Savitri, I would go to that. I would quote some lines from Savitri. I'll be showing you the lines, but before that, I would just read out the lines. So this is from book three, book of the Divine Mother, canto two, adoration of the Divine Mother. And here, where Sri Aurobindo talks about human aspiration, that is, all he had done was to prepare a field, all that sadhana. His small beginnings asked for a mighty end. Small beginnings, in the sense, the efforts of an individual, that may appear to be small, but that led to a mighty end. In fact, he asked for a mighty end. Why? Why did he ask for something, for the earth itself, not just for himself. Because you see, over the centuries, so many things have happened, so many religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, so many philosophies, Western, Eastern, so many educational, so much of education has been disseminated, so many subjects, so many disciplines. Revolutions have come and gone. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the Maoist Revolution in China, which all talked about a utopia and the redemption of human society, so called, as if this revolution would come and everything would be fine with humanity. So all those revolutions came and went. Social reforms, so many social reforms have taken place over the centuries. Emancipation of the blacks, in the sense that previously they were treated like animals, they could not vote, now they can vote. Women being treated as equal. All these social reforms, many have come and gone. Social service, so many philanthropic organizations. All these we are trying, all these things have been tried in human society to bring a fundamental change in the way humanity lives and suffers. But nothing has solved that problem, that cosmic problem of suffering. So many avatars have come. Zoroaster, Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and all the avatars of the Hindu tradition. So many avatars have come and gone. Human society, it still stays where it is. No drastic change has taken place. The same misery, the same violence, the same wars and conflicts, everything, they go on and on. So all have failed because mankind's consciousness has not changed. Its consciousness remains the same. There has not been a change in its consciousness. So Ashwapati sadhana is to prepare the field for the next leap in the evolutionary journey of mankind. Mankind as he is, unless there is a evolution in his consciousness, nothing is going to change. So Ashwapati sadhana is for the next leap in human consciousness, the evolutionary leap in human consciousness. And that is why this is called his small beginnings led to a mighty end. And that can happen only when a superior force, like Sri Aurobindo says, the supramental, has to descend on earth to change and transform earth nature and normal human consciousness. Next, some more lines, three more lines. For all that he had been must now new shape in him, her joy to embody. Her joy means the joy of the Divine Mother. To enshrine her beauty and greatness in his house of life. The Divine Mother herself has to intervene at this point of time. The capacity of the human beings are not enough. All that has been must now take a new shape. He aspired to bring down the divine to the earthly plane. And the lines are to embody, to enshrine her beauty and greatness in his house of life. That was his aspiration, to call down the interference of the Divine Mother. And that is why in Canto 4 of Book 3, he actually asks the mother, the lines are three lines: mission to earth, some living form of thee. You please come to earth in a living form. Mission to earth, send. Let thy infinity in one body live. You are infinite, but please come and live in a body, in a human body. All love throb single in one human heart. All your infinite love and compassion, let it be, let it be contained in one human heart. He asks, these are the specific lines he addresses to the mother in Canto 4, the vision and the boon. But now let us again continue with the human aspiration part. But now his being was too wide for self. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. So now he was not asking something for himself. He has seen the suffering of humanity over the centuries. Nothing has changed. So many changes have been attempted, but nothing has changed fundamentally. So now his heart's demand had grown immeasurable. Now it was not his demand, it was for the whole of mankind. His single freedom could not satisfy. He was liberated. He had freedom. Like so many of the avatars. They attain nirvana, they attain enlightenment. It was their single freedom. But that did not redeem mankind. So his single freedom could not satisfy. Her light, her bliss, he asked for earth and men. He said, Mother, your earth, your light, your bliss, I ask for the whole mankind, not for just for myself. He had already attained, but he wanted it for the entire mankind. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. This is human aspiration at its highest, not just for my own redemption, my own emancipation, my own enlightenment, but redemption of the whole mankind, transformation of earth nature, transformation of human consciousness. This is aspiration at its highest. This is the call of the planet Earth itself. Here, individual gifts won't suffice, like in the case of Swami Vivekananda. Viveka, Vairagya, devotion, knowledge, bhakti, mother, please. Those are individual gifts. Here, individual gifts would not suffice. So now, for this kind of an aspiration, to answer this kind of an aspiration, boons at an individual level would not be sufficient. So the Divine Mother has to come down herself on earth to change the destiny of mankind. And that is the supreme grace from above that answers. That is the second part of that sentence. So this is about human aspiration. So before I proceed further, let's just a quick recap of these lines for retention. Is it visible,
Yes, sir.
Arunima?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So this is human aspiration and divine grace. The two great powers, fixed and unfailing aspiration that calls from below, and the supreme grace from above that answers. What is aspiration? Aspiration is the call in the being for the divine or for the higher things that belong to the divine consciousness. This is how he defines it. Aspiration, letters in yoga. Those are the lines about aspiration. All he had done was to prepare a field. His small beginnings asked for a mighty end. I continue. For all that he had been must now new shape in him, her joy to embody, to enshrine her beauty and greatness in his house of life. And then this he asks of the mother in Canto 4, mission to earth some living form of thee, let thy infinity in one body live. All love throb single in one heart, one human heart. So this he asks of the mother. And this is again about his aspiration. But now his being was too wide for self. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. His single freedom could not satisfy. It was not his own individual aspiration. Her light, her bliss, he asked for earth and men. I'll stop it here and we'll go over to divine grace, the subject of divine grace. So, aspiration part we have covered. Now we come to divine grace. What do we mean by divine grace? In the normal sense, we usually understand it as Daivi Kripa. That is how we usually talk about it. Bhagwan ka kripa hona. We talk like that, divine grace. Again, Sri Aurobindo gives a very specific definition of divine grace. He says, divine grace is something which contradicts the law of the world, for it is outside its normal rule and not of its nature. It's an intervention. You see, this whole universe, this whole existence, it's subject to laws, read, as we call it in the Vedas, truth, laws. That is how everything functions. Whether you talk about scientific laws or moral laws, law of karma, all these are laws. That is how the whole existence functions through laws. But divine grace is something different from laws. It does not follow any law. You see, if everything had been laws, it would have been mathematics. That would not have been the divine. And again, Sri Aurobindo says, had divine grace not been there, then would all be laws and mechanism. All would be it would be a whole thing would be a mechanical thing. Everything would have been mathematics, an iron law, which never deviates from what it is supposed to do. And further, he says, so divine grace goes above, you can say, this cosmic order of law, of Rita, all these, it goes beyond that. It goes higher than that. It's an intervention of the divine. So, and then he says, again in Letters on Yoga, it does not select the righteous and reject the sinner. Like I said, it's not mathematics that you do good karma, you will get good results, you do bad karma, you will get bad results. All that does not apply to divine grace. It is a power that is superior to any rule, any cosmic law. That is the power of divine grace. Let's take the example of Ratnakar turning into Valmiki. He was a robber and he was ruining people's lives. But when the realization dawns on him that my sin won't be shared by my family, immediately that aspiration for a higher life immediately took over. And he was such a coarse person, he could not even spell Rama. So Narada had to tell him, okay, you can't spell Rama, you spell Mara. So if you keep on repeating Mara, Mara, then Rama would be automatically restricted. And that's how Ratnakar transformed into Valmiki, just by the power of his aspiration and again by the divine grace. And here, Sri Aurobindo makes a beautiful statement in Letters on Yoga, which is very relevant to Ratnakar's situation. The divine gives the fruits not by the measure of the sadhana. We are full of imperfections. We are full of faults. What sadhana, how much can we do, you know, totally depending on our own capabilities and abilities? We are imperfect. So, in the similar manner, Ratnakar was also imperfect. He was a robber. So here he says the divine gives the fruits not by the measure of the sadhana, because our sadhana in any case is going to be imperfect, but by the measure of the soul's sincerity and its aspiration. That is the measure. If we are sincere in our souls, and if we have that aspiration, all the imperfections of our sadhana would be ignored, would be glossed over by the divine. Because the divine would look into our hearts, not into our sadhana, our methods, or practice, or whatever. So that is the message that is being given here. Now, grace is rare in a man's life. We even when it is there, we hardly realize that grace is operating in our lives. You can say in our lives, usually it comes like as a glimpse, as an insight, as a flash of intuition. Then we realize, okay, this is not something I had figured out before. This is something very strange. It's coming from a higher plane. We realize like that. So grace comes in small bits and flashes into our lives. So something which gives us the certitude that the divine is there. Yes, I have received this guidance. This guidance could have come only from the divine. Only the divine could have made this possible. This change in my life could have been possible only because of the interference of the divine. Some such realizations that happen in our lives. Such an occasion is most auspicious and a sacred moment in every man's life. Conviction that God is there, He has not forgotten me, He has not ignored me, He has showered this blessing on me. It's not a God forsaken life. You see, where everywhere there is doubt and there is uncertainty everywhere. If you take the case of Jesus, when he was in the final throes of his death, he was already crucified and he was bleeding. Person like Jesus, an avatar, he looks up to the heavens and he asks, Father, have you forsaken me? An avatar. He's asking of his divine father, Father, have you forsaken me? Then the final act of surrender comes and he says, Let thy will be done, Father. Not mine, but let thy will be done. If this is your will, let it be done. And that was the act of final surrender of Jesus, even in spite of being an avatar. So in such a world, how much can can a blessing of grace can matter to us? So Sri Aurobindo says, now we are talking about divine grace. This is book 1, canto 4, the book of beginnings. Canto 4 is the secret knowledge. Here, Sri Aurobindo says about divine grace, only sometimes a holier influence comes. He's talking about people like us. Sometimes the holier influence comes. It's not there always. We're not into a state of grace all the time. Sometimes the grace comes. And it can just, happen suddenly. It's like, we are walking through a forest in the dark night and there's a flash of lightning. And we can see the path. Okay, this is the path. I'm going in the right way. It's like that. Some realization. And we get that conviction and confidence that yes, we are going towards the right direction. We have not gone astray. Someone is taking care of me. That time, that kind of a thing. So that is why he says only sometimes a holier influence comes. Probably the fully God realized persons, they always enjoy a state of grace. They are know that they are in divinity. In spite of that, you see, Jesus had that doubt. Has God forsaken me? He had that doubt. But for us lesser mortals, you know, we have to carry on our journey armed with such flashes of intuition or grace, of little bit of, uh, lighting up of our path and all that, momentary lights up of intuition or higher glimpses. That is how it is with us in case of grace. Then he continues, a tide of mightier surgings bears our lives. When we feel a greater power working in our lives, and the diviner presence moves the soul. When we are convinced that yes, we are being moved by something higher than what we have in our lives, when such moments come, they carry us as if by a mighty tide of mightier surgings bears our lives. In such moments, life ceases to be a burden. We are happy that we are being carried along. We are not simply moving on the strength of our ego, that whatever I do, that is what my life is going to be. We go beyond that. That no, I am being carried forward with the grace of the Lord. And when the divine is carrying us forward, with its upsurge, then there is only one thing left for us to do: go with the flow, knowing that the divine is taking care, the divine grace is operating in my life. It may not be continuous state of grace, but that conviction, the divine is there, the divine is taking care. A diviner presence moves the soul. That is the line. When our soul is in the hands of the divine, what doubt, what fear? So again, he continues again about this grace. Or Through the earthly coverings, something breaks. Grace and beauty of spiritual life. Now, earthly coverings. That means our material, mundane life. We're totally engrossed in our mundane life. And then suddenly, in the midst of it, in the hustle and bustle of life, in the busyness and commerce of life, in the noise of the marketplace, sometimes suddenly something happens, some flash, and we realize we kind of become conscious of the presence of the divine. Divine announces its presence, through the earthly covering, something breaks. An unexpected pause and interruption in our mundane preoccupations, and we are bathed with a spiritual light. And further down the canto, Sri Aurobindo gives another imagery, which is absolutely marvelous. I have not come across anything of this kind in all the kinds of poetry I've read. I've read a lot, let me tell you, but I have not come across anything of this kind. He says in the same canto, okay, uh, let me just again go over the lines once more. Visible? Yeah. So first the definition. Divine grace is something which contradicts the law of the world, for it is outside its normal rule and not its nature. It's an intervention. That's one definition of divine grace. And again, further elaboration. Had divine grace not been there, then it would all be laws and mechanism. These are from Letters on Yoga, Volume 2. One more point, it does not select the righteous and reject the sinner. If that is the case, then again it's mathematics. The divine gives the fruits not by the measure of the sadhana, but by the measure of the soul's sincerity and its aspiration. So all these definitions are from Letters on Yoga, volume. Now we come to the lines of Savitri, Book 1, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. Only sometimes a holier influence comes. Those flashes of intuition, those streaks of lightnings. Tide of mightier surgings bears us our lives, and the diviner presence moves the soul when we actually feel that we are being guided by the divine. But such moments are rare in our lives. That is why he says only sometimes a holier influence comes. Or through the earthly coverings, something breaks, and grace and beauty of spiritual light. In the midst of everything, in the midst of all the noise, sometimes suddenly we are taken aback and we feel that blessing, that veneration. Now I come to those lines that I'm talking about. When the divine grace comes into our lives, we hardly are aware of it. And we don't know how it happens, why it happens, when it happens. We have no idea. And here he says, it is absolutely poetic. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. Or darkness. And darkness here, we can understand it as ignorance, gross materialism. All that is darkness. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, that means you can say the heart of earth or our hearts. When we are totally overpowered by the darkness of ignorance, of material living, of sensual living, then, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. Corporeal is the physical mind. It's the physical mind. Seeing the world through the light of the materialistic mind. I will believe it only when I see it. What's in it for me? In what way am I going to gain? These are the statements that we make, which show our corporeal mind, the utilitarian mind. मुझे क्या मिलेगा? That is the approach we usually have. And when this is there, the darkness is strangling our heart, and only this is the only lamp we have, this physical mind. seeing everything in a gross physical manner. Material gain, utility, self interest. Then he says, when the grace is upon us, he says, how the Lord steps into our lives. Absolutely marvelous, beautiful lines. As a thief is in the night, shall be the covered tread. Like a covered tread means the hidden footsteps, silent hidden footsteps, covered tread. Like a thief who comes into the night into our house with his silent footsteps, of one who steps unseen into his house. God can enter our lives like a thief without our knowing. That is the analogy he's using. He's comparing the coming of divine grace into our lives with the stealing of a thief into our houses, which always happens without our knowledge. Covered tread, hidden and silent footsteps of the thief. Like a thief, he's comparing the divine with a thief. Sri Aurobindo using the imagery. So when God enters our life without our knowledge, without our conscious attention, just as a thief enters our house, this tiptoeing thief shall break through our material defenses and enter our house, inner being, one who steps into his house. Then what happens? What happens when this happens? A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey. A voice ill heard. Why? Because we don't usually listen to the divine voice. All the words of the sages are there. Sri Aurobindo's writings are there. But we usually do not listen to that. But when this happens, when the grace has entered our lives without our knowledge, then our soul would obey. Then we shall see new light in those writings. This is why you see all different seekers, they respond differently to Sri Aurobindo's writings or to any spiritual writings. We respond differently because the state of grace, we are not in the same kind of state of grace. A power into mind's inner chamber steal, when our inner chamber, a new power comes into that. And charm and sweetness open life's closed doors. We have closed the doors of our life to the divine with our sensuality, with our physical mind, with our corporeal mind, with our materialism. We have closed our doors. But now what will happen? A charm and sweetness opens life's closed doors. And beauty conquer the resisting world. We are resisting the divine. And that is conquered by the beauty of this tiptoeing of the divine into our lives. That beauty would conquer our resisting world. The The power of the Almighty shall take possession of the innermost recesses of our mind. The divine shall break through the closed doors. The divine shall conquer our resisting world. Now, what happens after that? The truth light capture nature by surprise because we were not prepared for it. When God comes into our lives like this, even without our knowledge, in a supreme act of grace, we are not conscious of it. We were not ready for it. You see, no devotee in the world who is aspiring for the divine has he ever been able to say when he becomes conscious of the grace, "Oh, you have come. Good. I was expecting you. Where were you all this while? I was calling you. I was pining for you. Why are you so late?" No devotee has ever said that. He was always overwhelmed. Rather, he said, "What have I done to deserve this?" That is the testimony of all the devotees who had this touch of grace in their lives. It always comes as a surprise. That is why he said, the truth light capture nature by surprise. Stealth of God compel the heart to bliss. Stealth of God, the one who cannot be detected. We talk about stealth fighters and bombers. Those fighters, planes, they cannot be detected by the radar. That is why they are called stealth fighters, stealth technology. So Sri Aurobindo uses the word stealth of God, who is not obvious, who is hidden. He will compel our heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. without our expecting it, without our anticipating it, suddenly everything becomes divine. So earth nature takes its turns towards the divine unexpectedly because it happens on its own due to the grace of the divine. This comparing the unexpected entry of the divine presence into our lives with the thief who enters our house, tiptoeing silently. I mean, this poetic metaphor imagery is simply unparalleled. I have not come across anything like this. So I thought I would share this with you. So with this, for the time, I would close my presentation. Human aspiration, I've talked about, divine grace, I've talked about, and these are the two great powers that Sri Aurobindo says that crowns our endeavor, spiritual endeavor. And you can say Savitri, in essence, is this is also one of the essential messages of Savitri. The divine mother herself incarnates on earth in a human body in response to the human aspiration, Pashupati, for the redemption of mankind and earth nature and earth consciousness. Thank you very much. I would stop it here. And if you have any questions, please. Over
Thank
to
you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, Narendra sir, for this enlightening session. Really heartfelt words from you. Thank you so much, sir. As you said, let's check with the participants if they want to ask something or share something. Participants, you can use the chat box to drop in your messages or questions. I can read it out. And the other option is to simply unmute yourself and speak up. Please go ahead.
Namaskar. My question is, Sri Aurobindo mentions one style of the divine's entry into our life as a thief. And can we not prepare ourselves in a different way to invite the entry of divine into our life? And if so, what could we do about it?
Sir, it's like this. We can always prepare according to our own capacities and abilities. But how that grace is going to come, that is not in our hands, then that cannot be predicted. It's not that we ask the divine that you come in this manner and I would receive you in this manner. It doesn't happen like that. Because you see, he's always using those words, unexpected. Sometimes the light breaks in. So it divine has its own designs. Most at the most unexpected places, you experience the grace. So here he's saying, even when we resist, when our nature resists the divine, still the divine overpowers our resistance and comes into our. That is the blessing of the divine. We may resist. The natural law would be since we are resisting, it won't come to us. That is the natural law. But here in his definitions of grace, Sri Aurobindo has made it clear that this is above all laws. Grace is above all laws. So even when we resist, grace can come in without our knowledge, even when we are not asking for it. So if the Lord is coming in the form of a like a thief, actually he is using an imagery. Coming into our lives like a thief enters our house means without our knowledge, without our consciousness. We don't know, and suddenly we find our life is overpowered by the divine, and everything changes for us. So that is not in our hands. How the divine is going to. You may aspire that God, you should come to me in the form of a Krishna playing the flute or whatever. You may aspire, but in what form the God is going to come, that is not in our hands.
The corollary is there is a type of fear that when God really decides to come to our individual life, if we are not prepared to welcome him, then his visit will be purposeless. So such a fear troubles us. What do you say
Well,
about it?
well, all you can do on your part is you can never predict what God is going to do. You can never be sure about what He is going to do. So on your part, you have to be receptive. You see, that is one of the qualities, 12 qualities that the mother talks about, receptivity. So from our side, we have to keep the ground prepared. Receptivity, humility, sincerity. These are the things in our hands. We can talk about what are the things that in our hands. We can never talk about how divine grace is going to come and whether even if we are not prepared, it may go. Yes, it may happen like that. The divine grace is there. Sometimes we are so you know into our material living, we may reject the grace also. We may not recognize it also. That also happens. So that is why we have to be in that state of receptivity, of humility, so that we can spot these blessings. Blessings are there, let me tell you. Everybody is enjoying some blessings. Only thing is we are not conscious of it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Related comment or question to this. Preeti ma'am says, could it mean it's symbolic that he comes in our darkest of times and quietly like a thief?
Uh, that is a symbolic expression that Sri Aurobindo has used, analogy, you can see, the entry of divine grace into our lives without our knowledge, just like a thief, he enters our house without our knowledge. He uses that analogy. But whether in our darkest of hours, whether the grace would be there, that is difficult to say because each individual spiritual evolution and journey is different. So, at what point of time, what point of time in the darkness, the light is going to shine, that cannot be, predicted, or there are no hard and fast rules about it. We just have to aspire from our side. We cannot dictate terms to the divine. If some quota of suffering is there in our lives, that quota of suffering we have to go through. We have to endure that. That is why Sri Aurobindo talks about titiksha, endurance, mental and physical, both. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is sharing and I think a question also from Nitinji in the chat box. I will read it out and you can take a look as well in the chat box. Dear Narendra ji, the interplay of aspiration, grace, and inner purification in the spiritual journey. Aspiration, as fortified in Savitri, is like a flame reaching towards the divine, a yearning that calls down grace. However, as the synthesis of yoga and life divine suggest, to truly receive and hold grace, one must labor for inner purification, not as a precondition, but as a natural consequence of sincerity. Grace
Yes.
itself is beyond effort, beyond merit, beyond even conceptions of purity. It simply is, but our receptivity to it depends on the state of our consciousness. If we are clouded by ego, attachments, or mental constructions, grace may touch us but not transform us. This is crux of problem. To feel grace without purification may indeed be a perception, but not necessarily an illusion. Sometimes grace descends unconditionally as an act of divine love to open the doors of transformation. However, to live in grace, please enlighten me. If you would
I
like to
have
comment
nothing
on
to
that.
disagree with what you said. There's no argument at all. More or less, I agree with whatever you have said. But again, uh, yes, purification, all that is required for the grace to operate in our lives. Again, those are our mental constructions that we have to purify, we have to do this, we have to do that. But Sri Aurobindo also has given many examples where sinners and no do-gooders, they have also enjoyed the grace because somewhere their heart sincerely cried out for the divine, though they were not purified totally or something. But that sincere cry of the heart rose from them and they enjoyed the grace. Bilva Mangal, he talks about that also. Talks about Bilva Mangal. Like several, Jogai Madhai, if you know Sri Chaitanya, how he transformed those two drunkards and all the time they were brawling. So all these things are happen all the time. So yes, by and large, it is true that purification is necessary. All those sincerity, all those qualities, they are necessary. All that is there. But again, divine grace, like Sri Aurobindo says in the very beginning, it is above all laws. It is above all laws. So that prerogative the divine has. We cannot say it's like this, so grace has to come. We cannot say that. So, however, to live in grace, please enlighten me. We don't live in grace, we enjoy grace. When it is showered on us, we enjoy the grace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Narendra sir. We also have Dr. Ramesh Bijlani sir with us in the session. I request you, sir, to share your comments, please.
Thank you, Narendraji, for such an enlightening talk, uh, talking about one of the major pillars of sadhana, aspiration, besides aspiration, rejection, and surrender, are the other two. But then what we forget is that uh, none of these will be enough without divine grace, because even if we practice the sadhana through our rejection and surrender, neither is our rejection ever satisfactory, nor is surrender ever complete. Total surrender is more than a lifelong process. So, without divine grace, we really cannot do much. It was very interesting to see so much discussion on Sri Aurobindo's analogy of comparing God to a thief. Uh, you know, it shows that how much reverence we have for the divine, for the giver of us, giver of all that we have and all that we uh, can do. I mean, or the one who is there in everything that exists. All existence is because of him. He does not depend on existence. It's all existence that depends on him. So we have that reverence that was to showing. But then God does not need our defense. Need not doesn't need that we come to his defense when Sri Aurobindo has used that analogy. What we forget is that this analogy has not been used for the first time. We call Krishna Makhan Chor. So, he also stole Makhan. But anyway, that is in a lighter vein. But then if you look at it a little more seriously, uh, divine enters and steals something. What does he steal? He steals our ignorance. And why do we call it stealing? Because not only he enters in darkness, uh, unnoticed, and also in when we are going through our darkest phases in life, but when he steals our ignorance, he's stealing something that is dear to us. That's something we forget. Because in spite of all our craving for higher knowledge, we also cling to our ignorance. Stealing is for something which we dear to us, somebody who takes away something that's dear to us. And that's what the divine is doing as a part of the grace that is being showered on us, stealing our ignorance, which we tend to cling to in spite of uh, all our, something which we may not admit, but uh, the various weaknesses that we have, all the weaknesses, which you call those enemies, like this kama, krodha, lobha, moha, ahankar, matsarya, desires, anger, greed, attachment, uh, and arrogance, jealousy. No, these are all, in fact, rooted in ignorance. And how we cling to them, how difficult we find it to root them out. Because some of these negativities do give us those thrills, fleeting pleasures, which we find it very difficult to get rid of. And again, it's divine grace that is helping us, the divine entering unnoticed and robbing us of these weaknesses which we tend to cling to. So these were some of the ideas that crossed my mind while this discussion was going on, and thought I'll just share them, whatever they are worth. So with that, I hand over to Arunima.
Thank you, sir. So before we close the session, I would like to inform that the recording of today's session.
Arunima,
Yes, sir.
Narendraji wants to add something.
Of course, please, sir.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Bijlani. Your enlightening comments were very inspiring, and this you brought out the subject of Krishna as Makhan Chor. Uh, Symbolism is one of the subjects of my passion, so I just couldn't, resist the idea of talking about a couple of things about that. We all know that story. Krishna used to, as a child, he used to steal the butter of the people of Gokul. So you see, they were all they were into the business of selling milk, and they were gwalas, most of them. They sold milk and they made butter and all that. You think, how is butter produced? So, first, they had to milk the cows, they had to tend the cows, and out of that milk and this thing, the final product was butter, churning the milk and all, and butter. And there's a symbolic meaning to all this. So butter was the final, you can say the fruit of actions of what they were doing. But that was on a material plane. Butter was the final result of their actions. They were doing all that, tending the cows, feeding the cows, milking, getting the milk, churning the milk. Why? To get the butter. So butter was the final product, the fruit of actions. But the Lord stealing away the fruit of actions of all our material aspirations, whatever we have, the final product Lord is stealing away. And naturally, they used to all get angry. They used to go to Yashoda and complain to her, look what your son is doing. But inwardly also, they were happy. They, all of them, loved the child Krishna. And inwardly, they were happy. And whenever someone's butter was stolen, the first thought, when he saw that his butter is gone, the first thought would go to Krishna. Hey, Krishna, kya hai? Krishna ka kaam. So, in that situation also, those acts of naughtiness, they he brought the ideas. They were all devotees in different stages. So he brought his devotees to him. He directed their thoughts to him by taking it, just like what Dr. Bijlani was saying right now. But sometimes he takes even things which are dear to us, which cause pain and suffering to us. And it is in those situations that we turn to God. So that is also a grace which operates in a different way. Through pain and suffering, we go to God. But again, that is a grace of God. That is why we turn to Him through our pain and suffering. He takes away the butter, which is the most dearest thing for us. He takes away our butter. So that has been conveyed in a very playful manner. So I just thought I would add this dimension to the story. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Narendra sir, for the beautiful comments. So, yes, the recording of today's beautiful session will be published on our YouTube channel, Yes Spirituality. Please note this is how it is spelled. And please do visit the channel and explore extensive content on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like psychology and wellness. Thanks once again, Narendra sir, for your valuable time and
Thank you. Thank you to Yes Talks for giving me this opportunity once again. Thank you so much, Arunimaji, and to Dr. Bijlani. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Participants, thank you so much for being with us today. We'll close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.